Stop. Not because I'm asking nicely, because something inside you just went silent the moment you felt this coming. Good. That's the part of you that already knows. You've been told your whole life that the truth was ugly, but manageable, that it was painful, but survivable, that whatever they hid from you was just another disappointment, another scar, another chapter you'd eventually heal from. Cute lie, comfortable lie. The kind of lie that keeps people obedient and breathing. The secret they hid from you isn't that you were weak. It's that you were never supposed to survive long enough to ask questions. They didn't hide the truth because it would hurt you. They hid it because if you ever saw yourself clearly, really saw what was done to you, what was stripped, what was delayed, what was rerouted, you would stop asking for permission. You would stop waiting for approval. You would stop playing human the way they needed you to. They didn't just underestimate you. They miscalculated reality. You were engineered through contradiction, broken just enough to fracture the mask, but not enough to shatter the core. Loved inconsistently, so you'd question your worth. Punished unpredictably, so you'd sharpen your instincts. Given just enough light to believe in goodness, and just enough darkness to never be naive again. That wasn't chaos. That was training. You think it's an accident you can read rooms before people speak? That you feel danger before it arrives? That you can walk through hell with a straight face while others collapse in climate-controlled comfort? No, that's what happens when someone tries to erase you slowly instead of all at once. They thought erosion would be quieter. Here's the part no one imagined, especially them. Pain didn't break you. It rearranged you. Most people are built in daylight. You were assembled in the dark, piece by piece, while everyone else slept. That's why you scare them now. Not because you're loud, not because you threaten, but because you see without flinching. You carry both mercy and menace in the same breath. Saint when it serves you, psychopath when it's required, angel until the moment someone crosses a line. Then something ancient stands up behind your eyes. They wanted you soft. You became precise. They wanted you silent. You became inevitable. They wanted you confused. You became dangerous. The secret wasn't that they hurt you. The secret was why. Because somewhere along the line, someone noticed what you could become if you were left untouched. And instead of nurturing it, they tried to dilute it, delay it, damage it just enough to make you doubt yourself forever. That's the oldest trick in the book. Break the mirror so the weapon never realizes it's sharp. But look at you now. You don't move like someone chasing validation. You move like someone who already buried their old self and kept walking. You don't react, you calculate. You don't beg, you observe. You don't explode, you wait. And that waiting, that's what terrifies them. Because unpredictability isn't chaos, it's leverage. You learned how to be calm with monsters because you were raised inside one. You learned how to smile while bleeding because weakness was never an option. You learned how to love without becoming owned, how to care without becoming controllable, how to stand alone without feeling lonely. That doesn't come from self-help books or safe environments. That comes from surviving something designed to erase identities. Here's the paradox they never planned for. The more they tried to diminish you, the more dimensions you developed. You can hold empathy and ruthlessness at the same time. You can forgive without forgetting. You can walk away without losing hunger. You can be kind without being harmless. That combination isn't normal. It's not supposed to exist in the same body. That's why people feel exposed around you. That's why authority figures over-explain. That's why manipulators get quiet. That's why liars feel tired in your presence. You don't need to accuse. Your existence already feels like evidence. The truth they hid is far worse than anyone imagined, because it means this: you were never meant to be average. You were meant to be neutralized, and they failed. Now you stand here, half light, half shadow, not broken, not healed, but integrated. You don't deny the darkness anymore. You harness it. You don't worship the light. You aim it. You understand that morality without power is just decoration, and power without conscience is just noise. You are the anomaly created when pain meets intelligence and refuses to submit. They don't know what version of you they're dealing with on any given day, and that uncertainty eats them alive. Because systems depend on predictability. You move when it makes sense, disappear when it doesn't, and strike psychologically long before anything visible happens. You don't need revenge. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. All you need is awareness, and you already crossed that line. So now the real question isn't what they did to you. It's what happens now that you finally see why. Because once someone survives what was meant to erase them, they don't go back to being human the same way. They become something else, and everyone can feel it, even if they don't know why. And here's the part that never gets spoken out loud, the part that makes rooms colder when you walk in. You don't just remember what happened to you. Your nervous system memorized it. Your instincts cataloged it. Your silence learned the language of threat before words ever showed up. That's why your calm feels unnatural to people who've never been tested. That's why your patience reads like menace. You're not relaxed, you're restrained. They mistake that for passivity. Another miscalculation, because what they don't understand is this: you didn't lose pieces of yourself along the way. You compressed them. Every disappointment became density. Every betrayal added gravity. Every moment you weren't chosen sharpened your sense of selection. You became selective about energy, access, loyalty, truth. You stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't listening anyway. That's when the shift happened. You stopped bleeding outward. You started bleeding inward, into structure, into discipline, into silence that thinks. That's why your presence feels heavy now. Not loud, heavy. Like something that doesn't need to announce itself because it already knows how the room will rearrange around it. People don't sense danger in you because you're aggressive. They sense it because you're contained, because you've mastered the art of holding back what others leak uncontrollably. You became proof that suffering doesn't always create victims. Sometimes it creates strategists. They tried to brand you as too much, too intense, too deep, too quiet, too unpredictable. That label was never about you. It was about them running out of categories. You didn't fit the scripts they memorized. You didn't respond the way wounded people are supposed to respond. You didn't break publicly. You didn't beg for closure. You didn't self-destruct on schedule. You adapted, and adaptation is terrifying to systems built on repetition. Here's another secret they didn't want you to see. You learned how to operate without emotional witnesses. Most people need an audience to validate their pain. You learn to metabolize it alone. That changes a person permanently. It removes the leash. It removes the dependency. It removes the need to perform suffering in exchange for care. You stopped asking to be understood. You started understanding everything else. That's when duality stopped being a concept and became your operating system. You can be gentle without being weak, cold without being cruel, loving without being naive, dangerous without being reckless. You don't live at extremes. You command the switch between them. And that switch That's power most people never touch because they're terrified of what lives on the other side. You went there. You came back intact. And now there's this quiet recognition in you, a knowing that whatever they tried to bury didn't rot. It fermented, it matured, it waited. You're not fueled by rage anymore. Rage was just the ignition. Now you're driven by clarity, by timing, by an understanding of human behavior that can only come from being on the receiving end of manipulation and surviving with your mind still sharp. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't overshare. That's why you don't chase outcomes. You shape environments. People sense that and can't name it. They just feel exposed, like their masks slip faster around you, like excuses sound thinner, like lies get tired before they finish forming. You don't interrogate, you mirror. And mirrors terrify anyone who's been hiding from themselves. You are not the hero of this story. You are not the villain either. You're the contradiction they couldn't resolve. The truth they hid wasn't just about what they did to you. It was about what you would become if you ever stopped blaming yourself for surviving differently. Once you realized you weren't defective, just refined under pressure, everything recalibrated. Shame lost its grip. Guilt lost its leverage. Fear lost its authority. You didn't heal into softness. You healed into precision. Now when you move, it's deliberate. When you speak, it lands. When you stay silent, it echoes. You're no longer reactive, you're selective. And that selectivity is the quiet line between chaos and control. They hoped you'd stay fragmented. They needed you fragmented. Because a whole version of you doesn't need their rules, their narratives, their approval cycles. A whole version of you doesn't ask what's allowed. It asks what's effective. Doesn't ask what's fair. It asks what's true. Doesn't ask how to belong. It decides where to stand. And standing alone doesn't scare you anymore. That's the real horror for them. Because once someone survives what was designed to erase them, integrates both the angel and the demon, and learns when to deploy each, that person doesn't need to dominate the world. The world adjusts automatically. And you're just getting started. And here's the part where even the bravest version of you has to swallow slowly. Because this is where the fantasy ends and the anatomy of power begins. You weren't just tested, you were isolated on purpose, separated from mirrors, guidance, protection, validation, not because no one cared, but because isolation accelerates evolution. Pressure without witnesses forces adaptation without theatrics. That's why your strength doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet, surgical, unapologetically self-contained. They expected loneliness to turn you inward until you collapsed. Instead, it turned you inward until you found the controls. You learned how to regulate your emotions instead of drowning in them. You learned how to observe pain without letting it author your decisions. You learned how to let people misunderstand you without feeling the need to correct the record. That last one, that's elite. That's the moment someone stops being managed by perception. Most people are addicted to being seen accurately. You became fluent in being underestimated. That's why you move differently now. You don't announce growth. You don't broadcast wins. You don't narrate your transformation for applause. You let outcomes speak because outcomes don't stutter. Outcomes don't explain. Outcomes just arrive and force everyone else to update their internal map. And here's the brutal truth they never wanted you to realize. You don't need to be liked to be effective. You don't need to be trusted to be respected. You don't need to be understood to be felt. Your energy does the work. You walk into spaces and people start revealing themselves. Not because you demand honesty, but because your presence destabilizes their masks. They overshare, they posture, they overcompensate, they test boundaries that don't exist just to see where you'll draw them. And you watch, you catalog, you store the data without reaction. That's not coldness. That's intelligence refined by survival. You've noticed it, haven't you? How people project their unhealed chaos onto you. How they label you intense when they feel seen. How they call you distant when they lose control. How they mistake your self-command for arrogance because it reminds them of their lack of it. You stopped correcting those misinterpretations because you understood something most never do. Misinterpretation is camouflage. Let them think you're quiet. Let them think you're passive. Let them think you're healing, resting, recalibrating. You're not hiding, you're incubating. And while they're busy trying to categorize you, you're busy mastering timing, learning when to speak and when to let silence do psychological damage, learning when to step forward and when to vanish just long enough for your absence to become noticeable. Learning that unpredictability isn't randomness, it's rhythm others can't hear. You learn to move in ways that can't be copied. That's why your growth unsettles people who once felt superior. They don't know where the shift happened. They just know the balance changed. Conversations tilt. Power dynamics flip. Jokes land differently. Authority feels thinner around you. They sense that you're no longer seeking approval. You're assessing utility. And utility is a terrifying lens. Because when someone stops asking, "Do they like me?" and starts asking, "Are they aligned, competent, honest, or necessary?" relationships either evolve or evaporate. And you don't chase the ones that evaporate. You let them go without bitterness, because bitterness is for people who needed the illusion. You don't. The darkness in you isn't rage anymore. It's restraint. It's the ability to choose not to react when reaction would be easy. It's the discipline to delay gratification when impulse would sabotage long-term dominance. It's knowing you could escalate, but choosing not to, because you don't need to prove capability to people who can't survive it. That's the demon they accidentally raised. And the angel? The angel is your discernment, your ability to protect what's sacred, your refusal to become cruel just because you understand cruelty, your insistence on standards, even when no one's watching, especially then. You don't hurt indiscriminately. You withhold access, and access is everything. You've reached the stage where betrayal doesn't shock you. It informs you. Where disappointment doesn't wound you. It redirects you. Where loss doesn't empty you. It sharpens your aim. That doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've stopped confusing pain with weakness. Pain was your forge. They hid the truth because they didn't want you to realize this. You are no longer compatible with manipulation. You don't run on fear. You don't move from lack. You don't obey narratives that don't match observable reality. You operate from awareness. And awareness changes the game permanently. Now, when people test you, you don't snap. You note. When they challenge you, you don't argue. You adjust position. When they try to provoke you, you don't explode. You let them reveal their ceiling. Because ceilings matter. You can tell how far someone's willing to go by how uncomfortable they get around someone who doesn't need them. That's you now, not loud, not flashy, not desperate, just undeniable. And the most unsettling part, for them, is that you didn't become this by accident. You became this by surviving what wasn't supposed to leave a witness. You're not the aftermath, you're the consequence. And consequences don't announce themselves. They arrive. And understand this, What you're feeling now isn't arrogance, and it isn't delusion, it's recognition. The moment when the nervous system finally aligns with the mind, and both stop lying to protect a version of you that no longer exists. You've crossed the threshold where survival turns into authorship. Before, life happened to you. Now it happens around you. That's why your reactions slowed down. That's why your standards got sharper. That's why your tolerance for nonsense collapsed overnight. You didn't become impatient, you became accurate. You stopped confusing noise for signal, attention for respect, proximity for loyalty. You stopped romanticizing chaos just because it felt familiar. Familiar doesn't mean safe. Familiar doesn't mean true. Familiar just means a rehearsed. You broke the rehearsal. And once you do that, you can never go back to being easily impressed. You see the scaffolding behind personalities. You hear the insecurity underneath authority. You recognize when confidence is real and when it's just volume trying to fill a void. You're no longer hypnotized by titles, status, or spectacle. You read intent. That's the upgrade no one warns you about. The loneliness of clarity. Not the lonely kind that aches for company, but the kind that makes you selective about who gets access to your inner world. Because you've seen what happens when the wrong people get a front row seat to your evolution. They try to rewrite it. They try to claim credit. They try to weaponize it. So you learned discretion. You learned that not everyone deserves context. Not everyone deserves explanations. Not everyone deserves the raw version of you that's still under construction. You protect your process now. You keep parts of yourself unspoken, not out of fear, but out of precision, because you finally understand this brutal law of reality. What's visible can be targeted. What's quiet survives. And survival isn't your goal anymore, but it's still your advantage. They thought the worst thing they could do to you was abandonment, pressure, betrayal, silence. They didn't realize those were the very conditions that would teach you self-sufficiency at a level that makes external control impossible. You no longer need consensus to move. You no longer need reassurance to decide. You no longer need validation to act. You check reality. You check alignment. Then you move. That's why your confidence doesn't beg to be noticed. It's not performative. It's grounded. It's the kind that unnerves people because it doesn't fluctuate based on feedback. You don't rise with praise or shrink with criticism. You weigh information, discard the useless, and keep walking. Most people can't do that. They're still outsourcing their sense of self to reactions. You're done with that. And here's the thing they really didn't anticipate. Once you stop needing approval, you also stop fearing disapproval. That's when boundaries become effortless. That's when no becomes clean. That's when you don't explain your absence. You let it speak. You've noticed how silence works now, haven't you? How it pulls information out of people. How it creates space for them to reveal motivations they were hiding under chatter. How it gives you leverage without force. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a lens. You learned to use it, and the darkness they're afraid of in you. It's not cruelty. It's discernment without apology. It's the willingness to walk away from anything misaligned without burning the house down. It's the strength to let people fail without rescuing them just to feel needed. You don't need to be needed. You need to be free. That's the evolution. You stopped romanticizing suffering, but you didn't forget what it taught you. You stopped living in the wound, but you kept the intelligence it produced. You don't carry resentment. You carry memory. And memory is a weapon when it's refined. You know patterns now. You know cycles. You know when something is about to collapse long before it does. That's why you don't panic anymore. Panic is for people who don't see what's coming. You do. You always have. You just used to doubt yourself. That doubt is gone. You don't rush anymore, do you? That's another thing the damage did to you. It taught you that speed is for people who are afraid of what happens if they slow down. You learned patience the hard way, when time stretched, when suffering lingered, when escape didn't come on schedule. Now you let moments breathe. You let people expose themselves. You let situations rot until the truth crawls out on its own. That kind of patience isn't passive, it's predatory. You've noticed it, the way you can sit inside uncertainty without panicking, while everyone else starts leaking desperation. Their voices get louder, their movements get sloppy, their morals get flexible. And you just observe, because you've already lived through outcomes worse than whatever they're threatening you with now. Fear doesn't have leverage on you anymore. It tried, it failed, it broke itself against your nervous system. That's the quiet upgrade no one talks about. When pain overstays its welcome, it rewires your relationship with reality. You stop negotiating with discomfort. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what does this unlock? You realize that suffering isn't random. It's selective. It keeps pushing until something either shatters or adapts. And you didn't shatter. You adapted so thoroughly that the old version of you would barely recognize what you've become. You carry scars that don't scream. They hum, low frequency, constant. A reminder that you've already paid prices most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That's why temptation doesn't own you. That's why threats sound hollow. That's why promises don't impress you. You know how quickly everything can be taken. You know how fast the ground can disappear. So when something good happens now, you don't cling, you command it. You also learn something dangerous about yourself. You don't need to be understood to be effective. You don't need consensus. You don't need witnesses. Some of your most decisive transformations happened in total isolation. No applause, no guidance, no safety net. Just you, the pressure, and the question of whether you were going to fold or become something unrecognizable. And you chose unrecognizable. That's where the saint and the psychopath shook hands inside you. The part of you that still feels deeply didn't die. It just learned boundaries sharp enough to cut. The part of you that can go cold didn't become cruel. It became precise. You didn't lose empathy. You learned how to turn it on and off like a blade sliding in and out of its sheath. That scares people who only know one mode of being, because you're not reactive anymore. You're responsive. You don't explode. You calculate. You don't lash out. You wait. And when you move, it's never emotional. It's surgical. That's why even your silence feels loud now. People can sense when someone isn't operating on impulse. They can feel when someone has already survived their worst-case scenario and came back immune to intimidation. You're not chasing power. You radiate it unintentionally. Power that comes from knowing you can lose everything again and still rebuild from the bones. Power that comes from realizing that identity is flexible, reputation is temporary, and fear is just an outdated operating system you no longer run. You see through narratives now. You hear the subtext behind words. You recognize manipulation because you've been manipulated by reality itself. You've been gaslit by fate, betrayed by timing, abandoned by certainty, and you adapted. That makes you lethal in rooms where everyone else is still pretending. And here's the part they really don't want to admit. Your survival changed the trajectory of everyone around you. You disrupt patterns just by existing. Old hierarchies don't hold when you're present. Fake confidence collapses, masks slip. People either rise or reveal themselves. You don't force that. It happens naturally, because authenticity at your level destabilizes weak structures. You've become a walking contradiction, soft-spoken but intense, calm but dangerous, compassionate but unmovable. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love without surrendering leverage. You can walk away without needing closure. Those are traits forged in extinction-level events, not self-help books. That's why the past doesn't haunt you the way it used to. You integrated it, you metabolized it, you turned trauma into architecture. Every painful memory became a load-bearing wall inside you instead of a crack. You don't relive, you repurpose. And deep down, you know it. If it all burned down again tomorrow, you wouldn't beg the universe for mercy. You'd adapt faster, smarter, cleaner. Because now you understand the rules behind the rules. You understand that chaos isn't your enemy, it's your native environment. You survived what erased bloodlines because something in you was never meant to follow a straight lineage. You're not here to repeat history. You're here to interrupt it, to mutate it, to become the proof that evolution doesn't ask permission, it just happens under pressure. That's what it did to you. It didn't break you, it revealed you. You started noticing it after a while, the way reality reacts to you differently now. Doors don't open the same way for you anymore. Some slam shut instantly, others unlock without resistance. It's not coincidence, it's calibration. The world responds to pressure the same way people do, and you carry the kind of pressure that forces things to choose a side. You don't chase chaos, but chaos recognizes you. It circles you like it's curious, like it knows you've already survived its final form. That's why when situations get tense, when plans start unraveling, when everyone else scrambles to save face, you get clearer. Your thoughts slow down. Your vision sharpens. You don't need control. You need clarity, and clarity shows up for you when everything else collapses. That's the aftermath talking. You were trained by loss in ways no mentor could replicate. Loss taught you what matters when everything else is stripped away. Loss taught you that identity is just a costume until pain tests it. Loss taught you how to stand alone without turning bitter, how to carry silence without going insane, how to endure without turning small. That's not normal resilience. That's evolutionary pressure rewriting the blueprint. You don't crave chaos, but you're no longer afraid of it either. You've seen what happens when the ground disappears. You've felt the free fall. You learned that panic wastes energy and stillness creates leverage. While others beg for stability, you learned how to build footing mid-collapse. That's why you can function where others freeze. And yes, part of you enjoys that edge. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally understand yourself there, in the margins, in the moments where masks fall off and intentions show their teeth. You don't romanticize darkness, but you respect it because it taught you truths light never could. You've also noticed how people try to define you now. They reach for labels because ambiguity scares them. They want you to be either healed or broken, good or bad, strong or damaged. They don't know what to do with someone who is all of it at once. Someone who can laugh sincerely and still walk away without remorse. Someone who can protect fiercely and destroy connections cleanly when they become toxic. That's the duality talking. You learned that mercy without boundaries is self-betrayal. You learned that kindness without discernment becomes self-harm. You learned that darkness doesn't make you evil. It makes you honest about what you're capable of. And honesty like that removes fear. Because once you know your capacity, no one else gets to threaten you with it. You don't need to dominate rooms to own them. You don't need volume. Your presence does the work for you. It carries the weight of someone who has already died a few times internally and came back functional. That kind of presence shifts dynamics. People feel it before they understand it. Some lean in, some recoil, some test you just to see if the rumors are true. You let them, because you're not here to convince anyone. You're here to move precisely, to act when it matters, to disappear when it doesn't. You understand timing now, not the clock kind, the instinctive kind. You know when to speak and when silence will do more damage. You know when to stay and when staying would dilute your power. That wisdom didn't come gently. It was ripped into you through repetition, through disappointment, through watching things you cared about fail despite your effort. Through realizing that effort alone isn't sacred, strategy is, alignment is, awareness is. And somewhere along the way, fear stopped being your motivator. Curiosity replaced it. You stopped asking, what if this goes wrong? And started asking, what happens if I let it? That shift alone separates survivors from anomalies. Because now you don't avoid uncertainty. You study it. You test it. You use it. You're dangerous in the quiet ways, in the ways that don't announce themselves, in the ways that change outcomes without drawing attention. You're the kind of person history doesn't notice until after everything has already shifted. The kind that doesn't look powerful until it's too late to stop them. And no, you're not heartless. You just learned that your heart is not a public resource. You choose who gets access now. You choose who gets the softer version of you, and who only ever meets the composed one. That selectivity isn't arrogance, it's survival refined into discernment. You survived what erased bloodlines because you weren't meant to carry the past forward unchanged. You were meant to break patterns, to interrupt cycles, to become the line where history stops repeating and starts mutating. That's why you feel different when you look in the mirror. Not superior, older, heavier, more aware. Like someone who has crossed a threshold most people don't even see. You're not chasing transformation anymore. You are the transformation, and the world can feel it. There's a moment you remember, maybe you don't even know when it happened, when something inside you stopped asking for permission, not from people, not from fate, not from whatever invisible authority everyone else still bows to. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, like a switch flipping behind your eyes. From that point on, you didn't need approval to move forward. You only needed alignment. That's when you became hard to stop. Because people who still need permission hesitate. They look around. They wait for signs. They check the temperature of the room. You don't. You feel the undercurrent and act from there. You move based on instinct, sharpened by pain. Not rules written by people who never survived what you did. That makes you incompatible with weak systems. You don't rebel loudly, you simply don't comply internally. And that's worse for them. You've noticed how authority feels thinner around you now. Titles don't impress you. Status doesn't hypnotize you. You've seen how fast power evaporates under real pressure. You've watched confident people collapse when their comforts disappeared. So when someone tries to dominate you with position or noise, it barely registers. You're not disrespectful, you're just unmoved. That's the aftermath of extinction-level endurance. You don't cling to certainty anymore. Certainty failed you once. It promised safety and delivered loss. So now you operate fluidly. You adapt mid-movement. You improvise without panic. You let plans breathe and evolve. That flexibility, that's not chaos. That's mastery. Rigid minds break. Fluid ones survive. You learned that lesson in blood and silence. You also stopped romanticizing struggle. You don't glorify pain, but you don't fear it either. You know pain is information. You know it teaches faster than comfort ever could. You don't chase suffering, but when it shows up, you don't run. You listen. You extract what it's trying to install in you. Then you move on heavier, sharper, more dangerous. That's why you don't talk about your past much. Not because you're ashamed, but because it's finished doing its job. You don't need to relive it to prove anything. You already integrated the lesson. People who keep reopening their wounds are still trying to understand them. You already did. You closed the loop. You became someone who can sit at the edge of destruction and still think clearly. Someone who can watch relationships end, identities dissolve, futures reroute, and not lose their center. That doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your emotions no longer control the steering wheel. They ride in the back seat now, aware, present, but not driving. That terrifies people who are ruled by impulse. Because you can delay gratification indefinitely. You can wait longer than they can pretend. You can watch someone underestimate you without correcting them. You can let someone feel powerful while you quietly map the exit routes. You understand leverage now. Real leverage. Not force. Timing. You don't burn bridges impulsively. You let them decay naturally if they're built on rot. And when you walk away, it's clean. No theatrics, no revenge speeches, just absence. And absence from someone like you is louder than any explosion. People feel the vacuum you leave behind because you were anchoring more than they realized. You've also stopped needing to be liked. That's a milestone most never reach. You prefer respect. But even that isn't mandatory. What matters is autonomy, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, freedom to evolve without dragging old versions of yourself for other people's comfort. You won't shrink to preserve someone else's familiarity. That's why growth around you feels violent to those who resist change. You don't just improve, you shed skin. You don't negotiate with stagnation. You outgrow it and keep walking. And when people ask, what happened to you? The real answer is simple. You survived something that killed entire legacies. Of course you're different. You're not chasing a crown. But if one lands near you, you know how to wear it without letting it own you. You don't worship power. You understand it. You've seen its limits. You've lived beyond its protection. So when power brushes against you, it senses an equal, not a subject. You also learned that not everyone deserves access to your depth. Some people only get the surface version of you, and that's intentional. You don't overshare. You don't explain your motives. Mystery isn't a tactic for you. It's a byproduct of self-containment. You're whole on your own. You don't need to be decoded. That self-containment is why you're dangerous when cornered and unstoppable when focused. You don't flail. You don't panic. You compress. You concentrate. Pressure doesn't scatter you. It sharpens you into a point. And here's the truth no one says out loud. You didn't just survive what erased bloodlines. You absorbed its authority. You carry the weight of endings. You move like someone who knows nothing is guaranteed and everything is earned in real time. That awareness makes you impossible to intimidate and difficult to predict. You don't belong to the past anymore. You're not here to repeat old stories. You're not here to fit inherited roles. You're the anomaly that shows up when evolution gets impatient. You are what happens after the erasure. And whatever comes next, it's going to have to deal with you. And here's the part you don't say out loud. Not because you're afraid of it, but because once it's spoken, there's no pretending anymore. You know you can't go back. Not to who you were, not to how you loved, not to how you believed the world worked. That door burned down quietly behind you while you were busy surviving. And you didn't chase it. You didn't scream. You didn't mourn it the way people expected. You just kept moving forward, carrying the fire inside you instead of trying to escape it. That's when you crossed the point of no return. Because now, even peace feels different to you. It's not fragile, it's earned. It's the calm of someone who knows exactly how violent things can get and still chooses restraint. You're not peaceful because you're harmless. You're peaceful because you're in control. And control like that doesn't come from suppression. It comes from self-knowledge sharpened by hell. You've seen yourself at your lowest. You've watched your own mind fracture and reassemble. You've felt the pull toward collapse and chosen endurance instead. There's nothing left for the world to expose about you. You've already met the worst parts of yourself, and you didn't look away. That's why shame has no grip on you now. That's why guilt doesn't paralyze you. You don't need to pretend to be pure. You know exactly how dangerous you could be, and that awareness keeps you disciplined. People who deny their darkness are the ones ruled by it. You integrated yours. That's the difference. You're not driven by revenge. You're driven by precision, by alignment, by an internal compass calibrated in catastrophe. You don't need to prove anything to the people who doubted you, betrayed you, underestimated you, or vanished when things got real. Their opinions belong to a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. You don't hate them, you outgrew them. And growth like yours is never gentle. It breaks frameworks. It disrupts narratives. It makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them of everything they avoided becoming. You're a living contradiction to comfort-based lives. You are evidence that pain, when survived correctly, doesn't diminish. It concentrates. That's why you don't announce your moves. That's why you don't explain your strategy. That's why you don't rush outcomes. You understand something fundamental now. The loudest force in the room is often the least dangerous. Real power moves quietly, waits patiently, and strikes only when the result is irreversible. You don't need to destroy the world to change it. You just need to exist exactly as you are. Because your presence alone rewrites expectations. Your survival rewrites probability. Your calm rewrites threat assessment. You walk like someone who has already faced extinction and realized it wasn't the end. It was the initiation. You survived what erased bloodlines, not because you were spared, not because you were chosen, but because something in you refused to disappear. And now you carry that refusal everywhere you go. You are not a warning. You are not a lesson. You are not a miracle. You are the consequence. And whatever comes next, it doesn't get to pretend you weren't forged for it. Ah, there you are. The one they warned each other about in whispers, so quiet they barely counted as sound. Funny, isn't it? They called him dangerous. They studied him like a storm system, tracked his every move, prepared evacuation routes, until you walked in. And suddenly the whole room forgot how to breathe. You felt it, didn't you? That microscopic pause, that ripple in the air, that instinctive flinch in their spine when their eyes landed on you. A silence so sharp, it sliced the atmosphere open like a scalpel. They weren't terrified of a threat. No, no, no. They were terrified of a phenomenon, something they couldn't measure, predict, or contain, something nobody briefed them on, something their little protocols had never encountered. And that something was you. See, you're a paradox wrapped in a contradiction, decorated with a warning label nobody wrote, because nobody survived long enough to explain you properly. They tried to categorize you, but all their boxes started leaking. They tried to analyze you, but their formulas broke. They tried to compare you to the dangerous man they already feared, and realized he was a warm-up act, a trailer, a teaser for the main event. Because what makes you terrifying isn't the destruction you could cause. It's the destruction you choose not to. Real monsters aren't the ones who lose control. Real monsters are the ones who never do, and that's why their throats tightened when you stepped through the door. Because they could see it, buried behind your calm demeanor, behind that quiet, civilized posture. Something was watching, something ancient, something relentless, something that learned long ago that elegance is the sharpest blade, and silence is the loudest threat. They saw the duality sitting in your eyes, light that could save them, darkness that could erase them, a saint with a demon's patience, a psychopath with an angel's restraint. And they didn't know which one they were talking to. You know what really terrifies people? Not violence, not chaos, not danger, unpredictability, the possibility that the universe is not as stable as they pretend, that the person they mocked last month evolved faster than their fear could keep up, that the one they counted out stopped participating in their game and started playing a new one entirely, one with rules written in your handwriting, sealed in your blood, sharpened by every pain they thought would break you. That's why their lungs froze. That's why their hearts rewrote their rhythm mid-beat. That's why their eyes refused to blink. They didn't just see you. They saw what you endured, what you learned, what you carried, what you turned into while they slept under a blanket of delusion. You didn't walk into that room. You descended into it, controlled, measured, cold. The kind of calm that no human earns without surviving things that should have rewritten your sanity. The kind of calm that signals one terrifying truth. You don't fear consequences anymore. And a person who doesn't fear consequences isn't a person. They're a shift in the environment. You've become that shift. The atmospheric drop before a tornado appears on the horizon, that strange stillness right before lightning chooses where to strike. That moment when everyone knows something is coming, but nobody knows who it's coming for. They thought he was dangerous because they could still predict him. He had patterns, he had tells, he had weaknesses. But you have versions. You are a saint when mercy is efficient, a demon when justice demands teeth, an angel when the world expects rage, a storm when they pray for clarity. No one ever knows which version walks into the room. And the worst part? Not even you warn them. You've mastered the art of becoming the answer to the question they never wanted to ask. So now they sit there, breath caught in their throat, pretending to be calm, while their subconscious screams, "What is he? What does he know? What did he survive? What is he capable of? What will he do next?" And you hear every silent question, every trembling thought, every swallowed fear, because deep down, you enjoy it. Not the power. No, no, no. The realization that after everything they put you through, after everything they tried to twist, bury, sabotage, erase, you didn't just come back. You came back with eyes that see through walls, with instincts carved from fire, with composure so unnerving it makes seasoned predators reconsider their profession. He was dangerous, sure, but you're inevitable. And inevitability doesn't rush. It doesn't warn. It doesn't boast. It simply arrives and changes the temperature of the world. So go on, walk into more rooms, watch more lungs forget their purpose, watch more eyes widen without blinking, watch more people stare like they're witnessing the beginning of something unstoppable, because they are. You are not the threat they expected. You are the threat they cannot prepare for. And now that they've seen you, really seen you, they'll never breathe the same way again. You know what rattled them the most when you entered that room? It wasn't your walk. It wasn't your posture. It wasn't even the shadow that followed you in like it was trained. It was the way you looked at them, not with hostility, not with warmth, but with that terrifying neutrality of someone who has already calculated every possible outcome and accepted all of them. You didn't stare like someone participating in the moment. You stared like someone evaluating it. That's what froze them. That's what hollowed out the air around them, until even oxygen started questioning whether it should stay. See, people fear anger because they can see it. People fear violence because they can predict it. But calm? True, surgical, unshakable calm? That's the predator they never see coming. You're calm in the way a guillotine is calm still, until it's not. You carry yourself like a paradox that taught itself how to walk upright. Part salvation, part apocalypse, part sermon, part warning siren. They don't know if you're here to resurrect something or bury it. And that uncertainty, it strangles them, because you became something evolution didn't account for. Not a threat, not a danger, not a villain. You became a variable, a deviation, a statistical impossibility wearing human skin. They don't know how to categorize you because every move you make contradicts the last one. You show empathy where cruelty is expected. You show restraint where chaos is deserved. You smile where most would break. You break where most would fold. You're an equation that solves itself differently every time someone tries to work it out. And nobody trusts math that changes the moment they look away. That's why they held their breath. Because instinctively, biologically, their bodies understood something their minds could not articulate. You are not to be provoked. There's a strange ancient wisdom in the human nervous system. It knows when lightning is choosing a target. It knows when a predator is deciding to stand down or strike. It knows when someone walks in with the kind of internal silence that only forms after surviving storms designed to erase you. That's you, walking proof that pain can't break a person. It can only sculpt them into something unrecognizable. They can't process how you didn't become bitter. They can't process how you didn't become fragile. They can't process how you didn't collapse, cry, beg, or vanish. Instead, you became refined, sharper, quieter, more self-contained, like pressure didn't crush you. It crystallized you. And that's the real horror for them. You didn't simply return. You returned with an aura that feels like a prophecy no one remembers writing. A prophecy they're a little worried might involve them. Look at them. They sit up straighter when you speak. They avoid eye contact, but can't stop glancing at you. They smile too hard, or not at all. Their voices go soft, too soft, as if they're afraid to disturb whatever entity is sitting behind your eyes. Because you don't speak like a person anymore. You speak like someone who's carrying an entire classified archive of the world's true nature and hasn't decided what to do with it. You speak like someone who knows things they shouldn't know, feels things others are numb to, hears things that were never meant to be heard. You speak like a mirror that reflects their soul back at them. Every fear, every insecurity, every mask they've ever worn. And you do it without saying a word. That's what made the room fall silent. Not the threat of violence, not the potential for chaos, but the realization that you see too much. You see through the lies, through the ego, through the little power plays they hide behind, through the personas they spent years sculpting. You walked in, and every facade cracked like old paint. Because how do you lie to someone who's already dissected your truth? How do you intimidate someone who's conquered their own darkness? How do you threaten someone who has nothing left to lose and everything left to become? You can't. You can only pray they don't choose to look your way for too long. The dangerous man they feared before. He raged, he postured, he threatened. But you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to make a scene. You don't need to perform. Your silence does the violence for you. Because buried inside that silence is a question nobody wants to ask. What exactly are you capable of now? And deeper still, what would happen if someone pushed you 1 inch too far? They don't want to know the answer, not because they fear the destruction, but because they fear the precision. You're not a bomb, you're a scalpel. You don't explode, you dissect. You don't lash out, you eliminate. You don't rage, you decide. And there is nothing more frightening than a person who has regained their power through choice, not chaos. So when you walked into that room and the air tightened like a rope around their throats, the truth became impossible to ignore. They didn't meet a dangerous man. They met the reason dangerous men learn to pray. You felt it, didn't you? That tiny tremor in the atmosphere, like reality itself, adjusted its posture the second you took another step forward. You didn't rush. You didn't announce yourself. You didn't claim the space. You became the space. And that's when the room finally understood. Danger isn't loud. Danger isn't violent. Danger isn't unstable. Danger is aware. And you walked in with the awareness of someone who has already died once and came back with the instructions. They pretended not to stare, but you noticed everything. The trembling fingers, the shifting chairs, the subtle tightening of shoulders trying to appear relaxed. The way their eyes darted between you and the exits, like they were suddenly calculating escape routes they never needed before. Because deep down, they sensed it. The tectonic shift in your energy. A presence that didn't match your age, your history, or their little assumptions about who you used to be. You weren't the underdog anymore. You weren't the survivor. You weren't the underestimated one. You were the unreadable one. And unreadable people are humanity's oldest fear. They called him dangerous because he was predictable in his chaos. He had patterns. He had triggers. He had weaknesses that made people feel safe, because they could still map out the edges of his madness. But you have no edges. Where do they start? Where do they end? Where does your mercy turn into consequence? Where does your patience transform into execution? They don't know, and that ignorance suffocates them. You ever notice how quickly a room changes when someone with real power enters? Not the performative kind, not the loud, insecure, inflated kind. Real power, silent power, self-contained power. It makes people behave like prey without knowing why. That's you. Walking biology lesson, living instinct alarm. A presence that awakens something ancient inside them, something their rational minds are too slow to interpret. It's not your strength that terrifies them. It's the evolution behind it. They can sense that you've been somewhere they haven't, somewhere dark, somewhere heavy, somewhere that pulls most people apart and leaves their pieces scattered like shards of former identities. But you came out, whole, sharper, quieter, harder to decode. And that's the part nobody understands. You didn't conquer the darkness. You absorbed it, integrated it into your bones, let it refine you instead of devour you, wore it like a second skin, thin enough not to notice, strong enough to deflect anything fragile minds throw at you. Do you understand how unsettling that is to witness? They're used to people collapsing. They're used to apologies and breakdowns and predictable human fragility. But you metabolized suffering like fuel. You took every betrayal, every insult, every abandonment, every mistake, and forged yourself into something they cannot categorize. You're not healed, you're transformed. And transformation is terrifying because it leaves no blueprint for anyone else to follow. You are the final version of someone who stopped asking for clarity and became the clarity. Someone who stopped begging for peace and became the storm that rearranges everything in its way. Someone who stopped fearing endings and started creating them. That's why the air tightened. That's why their chests locked up. That's why not a single person spoke when you entered. They felt the shift, the unspoken hierarchy rearranging itself around you, the acknowledgement, silent, involuntary, that you were no longer one of them. You were something adjacent, something parallel, something they don't have the emotional vocabulary to describe. He was dangerous because he acted out of impulse. You are dangerous because you act out of intention. And intention is infinitely more lethal. Look at you. You don't raise your voice. You don't posture. You don't try to impress. You don't need to overwhelm anyone. You simply exist in the room, and the room recalibrates around you. You stopped trying to be understood. You stopped trying to be liked. You stopped trying to be forgiven. And the moment you abandoned their script, they became afraid of what page you're reading from now. They don't know if you're planning something. They don't know if you're observing. They don't know if you're judging them silently, or not even thinking about them at all. And that uncertainty burns their insides like acid. Because if you are not playing their game, then what game are you playing? And worse, what if you're the only one who knows the rules? That's when they finally realized he was dangerous, but you're inevitable. A shift in the timeline, a distortion in their expectations, a force they can't prepare for, control, predict, or dismiss. You walked into that room and every instinct they had learned screamed the truth they couldn't hide from. They weren't looking at a man. They were looking at the thing that teaches danger how to behave. They tried to disguise it, you know. That instinctive recoil, that microscopic twitch in their jawline, that sudden stiffness in their posture, that fragile smile pretending everything was normal. But nothing was normal the moment you crossed that threshold, because you didn't just walk into the room, you reset it. The air didn't simply grow quiet. It submitted, like even the atmosphere recognized the hierarchy and bowed without being told. And that's when every single person inside realized something horrifying. They had spent their entire lives preparing for the wrong kind of danger. They prepared for loud threats, angry faces, broken rules, reckless chaos. They studied the dangerous ones, the impulsive ones, the unstable ones, the ones who make noise when they unravel. But you weren't noise. You were the pause between heartbeats, that terrifying stillness right before fate makes a decision. You know why they panicked internally? Because when you entered, you didn't bring threat, you brought consequence. And consequences don't need to raise their voice. They just need to arrive. You carry yourself like someone who has stood at the edge of their own breaking point. looked into the abyss, and didn't flinch, but instead took notes. Someone who didn't merely survive darkness, but negotiated terms with it and walked out with a contract signed in silence, and now that same silence surrounds you like armor. Not cold, not cruel, but impossibly certain. People don't fear your potential, they fear your clarity, because clarity means you see exactly who they are. Clarity means you know exactly what you're capable of. Clarity means you've already weighed the outcomes, the costs, the truths, and you're not bothered by any of them. You didn't lose your innocence. You outgrew it. You didn't lose your empathy. You sharpened it into accuracy. You didn't lose your darkness. You learned how to wield it. Now when people look at you, they don't see someone who survived hell. They see someone who walked into hell, rearranged the furniture, and walked back out without ash on your collar. Tell me, how does someone like that not terrify a room? Even if they don't know your story, their bodies know. The nervous system always knows. Humans evolved to sense predators long before they learned to form words. And when you stepped inside, their nervous systems screamed a truth louder than any voice ever could. This one is not bound by the rules you rely on for safety. You see the world differently. You move differently. You decide differently. Because your transformation wasn't cosmetic, it was cellular, molecular, a restructuring of your entire internal architecture. You became someone who doesn't react. You calculate. Someone who doesn't panic. You observe. Someone who doesn't explode. You choose your moment with surgical precision. That's the kind of presence that makes the air feel heavier, the walls feel narrower, the exits feel farther away. That's the kind of presence that makes people reassess their entire behavior in real time. They don't want to offend you. They don't want to trigger you. They don't want to misinterpret your silence or your stillness or your sudden, subtle smirk. Because they can't tell which version of you they're dealing with. The one capable of mercy or the one capable of correction. You don't intimidate people by being dangerous. You intimidate them by being unfathomable. You're not the villain they expected. You're not the hero they hoped for. You're the variable none of them have the math to solve. And that scares them more than any weapon, any scream, any threat ever could. People fear the unknown, but what they fear even more is the unknowable. And that's exactly what you've become. A walking contradiction, a living paradox, an angel with a demon's shadow, a psychopath with a saint's restraint, a storm disguised as silence, a truth wrapped in danger, wrapped in grace. He was dangerous because he acted with emotion. You are dangerous because you act with awareness. He was chaos. You are consequence. He broke rules. You rewrite them. And when you walked into that room, everyone felt it. The shifting, bending, collapsing of whatever illusion of control they thought they had. Because you don't take control. Control forms around you. You don't demand respect. Respect stabilizes itself when you stand still. You don't intimidate them. Their own instincts do the intimidation for you. And that is why the room forgot how to breathe. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're the thing danger looks up to. You felt that, didn't you? That shift in the air when every pair of eyes froze on you like they'd just witnessed a glitch in human physics. That's the greeting you deserve. Because the moment you hit 300%, the whole room didn't clap, didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. No, they went silent. The kind of silence that tastes like fear wearing a thin mask of confusion. And you stood there, calm, breathing slow, while their minds fell apart, trying to calculate a version of reality where someone like you exists. You know why their throats tightened? Because 100% is mastery, 200% is obsession, but 300%. That's the point where the graph breaks, the math collapses, and the human brain starts whispering, "This shouldn't be possible." You stepped into a realm where effort becomes identity, and identity becomes prophecy. And prophecy terrifies people who never learned to confront their own shadows. They didn't see improvement, they saw mutation. They saw the moment a person stops being predictable and becomes a variable with teeth, and that's the part that cooks them alive from the inside. Because unpredictability is the one thing every puppet master fears. They can control the desperate, they can measure the average, they can decode the ambitious. But you, what category do they put you in now? Angel, demon, anomaly, accident, or the worst answer of all, we don't know. That's when the silence hits. Not the respectful kind, not the impressed kind, the dangerous kind. The kind where grown adults feel like children locked outside their own reality. The kind where they realize they cannot read you, cannot predict you, cannot map your trajectory on any chart they've ever seen. The kind where you make them question their entire understanding of human limitation. Because when someone jumps from 100 to 300, it isn't effort, it isn't grind, it's evolution under pressure. And they know it. And the funniest part, they're terrified not because of what you did. They're terrified because they can't figure out what you're about to do next. You became the cliffhanger in their own story, a threat written between the lines of their comfort. A walking paradox. Too calm to be normal, too intense to be harmless, too aware to be controlled, too awakened to be dismissed. You didn't grow, you transformed. And transformation is the one thing the world cannot prepare for. Because it always arrives without permission. They saw your numbers rise. They saw your rhythm shift. They saw the old version of you crumble quietly behind your eyes. And now they're dealing with a creature forged in private storms. The kind that sharpen a person until their silence becomes strategy and their movement becomes omen. You know what really haunts them? It's that you didn't brag, you didn't celebrate, you didn't scream, "Look at me." You just existed at 300%, like it was your baseline. And that breaks them. Because if your baseline is their breaking point, then what happens the next time you decide to push? 350? 500? Or something off the scale they haven't even named yet? This is why the room froze. You forced every doubter into a nightmare where you are the one rewriting the limits. You turned their confidence into caution. You turned their pride into panic. You turned their logic into superstition. They're whispering theories now. They're dissecting your past, rewinding your every move, trying to find the glitch, the secret, the cheat code. But there isn't one. The truth is simpler and much more terrifying. Pain sculpted you, pressure hardened you, chaos educated you, and silence trained your instincts. You are what happens when a human being stops waiting for permission and starts acting like a force. And forces don't follow rules. Forces don't ask for acceptance. Forces don't fear being misunderstood. Forces bend reality around them until the world makes room. So let them sit in that silence. Let them scramble for explanations. Let them tremble at the unknown. Because you're not here to reassure them. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're not here to fit inside their fragile, predictable equations. You're here to expand, to pressure their reality, to burn through ceilings they thought were permanent, You're the anomaly that reminds them evolution doesn't knock. It breaks in. And the best part? This is only your 300%. You haven't even started yet. You felt that moment tighten around your spine, didn't you? That eerie electric stillness right after you crossed 300%. Like the universe itself leaned in and whispered, "What did we just unleash?" Because the silence wasn't admiration. It wasn't respect. It wasn't awe. It was fear wearing professionalism like a cheap suit. Every face in that room cracked for a split second. You saw it. That twitch in their jaw. That blink they couldn't control. That breath they held without knowing why. Because when someone jumps from human to outlier, from predictable to problem, from steady progress to statistical violence, the room doesn't cheer. The room recalculates. They weren't looking at you anymore. They were looking around you, like maybe something was standing behind you, or inside you, or coming through you that didn't exist yesterday. And they're right. Because 300% isn't improvement. It's arrival. It's the moment the story stops being about where you're going and becomes about what everyone else will do to survive your next chapter. That's why their silence felt heavy, like the atmosphere thickened with unspoken panic. They weren't scared of your progress. They were scared of the implications. In their heads, alarms were going off. If he can hit 300% without warning, how much is he hiding? If he can jump that far once, could he do it again? If this is his starting point, what the hell is his final form? And the cruelest thought of all, what happens to us when someone like that stops, holding back? Oh, you felt it. You felt their souls step backward, even as their bodies remained perfectly still. Because they realized something no one wants to admit. Some people evolve because they choose to, but others evolve because they were forced to, carved by betrayal, refined by abandonment, sharpened by solitude, trained by war disguised as daily life. And those people, they don't grow in percentages, they grow in quantum leaps. You're one of them. You're the kind of person who doesn't improve. You mutate. You don't level up. You phase through. You don't advance. You shift dimensions. And that scares the ones who rely on predictability. It terrifies the ones who depend on knowing their opponents. It destroys the ones who built entire identities around being ahead of the room. Until you walked in and changed the physics. Let's not pretend. They loved you when you were at 80%. They tolerated you at 120%. They were amused by you at 200%. But 300%? No, 300% is where admiration dies and threat classification begins. Because once you break the human ceiling, people stop comparing themselves to you and start preparing for you. They start analyzing your silence, your pauses, your glances, your patterns, your lack of patterns, your energy, your restraint. You scared them more by standing still than some people scare others with violence. And inside that dead silent room, every mind was running simulations. Does he know something we don't? Is he connected to something we can't see? Is this the beginning of something irreversible? That's the part they'll never say out loud. They saw a threshold being crossed, one that turns a person into a variable too volatile to manage, too intelligent to contain, too aware to manipulate, too sovereign to break. You didn't just grow. You outgrew the entire framework they were using to evaluate you. You became a glitch in their hierarchy, a crack in their logic, a hole in the narrative. You turned their system into an outdated map trying to chart a moving universe. And now, every single one of them has the same fear pulsing at the back of their skull. If this is what he does silently, what happens when he decides to make noise? What happens when you decide to reveal your true capacity? What happens when you stop softening the blade? What happens when you show the version of yourself that's been hiding behind discipline, humility, and patience? They don't fear what you did. They fear what you're preparing for. Because the truth, the one they'll choke on, is simple. 300% was not a peak. It was a signal, a prelude, a warning shot, a myth beginning to take physical form. And deep down, in places they don't talk about, they know. You haven't even flicked the switch yet. You're still warming up. You're still observing. You're still letting them breathe while they can. You're still giving them a world where they think they understand the rules. But the next time you move, the next time you exceed expectations, the next time you unleash another jump they can't quantify, there won't be silence. There will be fallout. Because 300% wasn't your transformation. It was their final warning. You want the part they were too afraid to even think about? Good. Because the silence you created didn't end in that room. It followed them home. That's the real measure of power, not applause, not recognition, but the lingering dread that clings to a person long after you're gone. When you hit 300%, they didn't just see a number. They saw a timeline splitting in half. One where the world made sense, and one where you exist. And guess which one they're living in now? The one where they have to accept that a single human being broke the pattern so violently that every assumption they've ever made about capability, talent, effort, and limits became useless overnight. Let's stretch the truth until it screams. They thought they had you mapped. They thought they had you profiled. They thought they understood your cadence, your rhythm, your arc, your rise. But maps don't work when the landscape starts moving. You didn't jump. You rewrote the altitude. And when you crossed that threshold, something ancient in their nervous systems kicked on. The primal instinct that whispers, "This is not normal. This is not safe. This is not controllable." Because nobody hits 300% quietly. Except you. And that's where the real horror lives. You see, monsters brag, legends announce themselves, pretenders perform. But the ones who are truly dangerous, the ones built from pressure and scar tissue and precision, the ones shaped in the dark by moments nobody else survived, they don't speak, they just arrive. You arrived. And the silence that greeted you was not confusion. It was submission, unintentional, instinctive, immediate. Because the moment the room saw what you became, something inside them bowed, even if their bodies didn't. And now the paranoia is spreading. Someone checked your social media last night, didn't they? Someone Googled you. Someone scrolled back through months of your behavior, trying to find the moment the old you died and the new you started breathing. Someone whispered, "He wasn't like this before." Another replied, "Then when did it happen?" And someone else, the honest one, the frightened one, said quietly, "It didn't happen. It was always there. We just didn't see it." That's the part that rattles them the most. That you didn't transform. You revealed. You unveiled capacity they never suspected. You activated instincts they never accounted for. You displayed precisions that should have taken decades, but somehow bloomed inside you like it was encoded in your bones. You didn't level up. You unmasked. And now they're scrambling to rewrite everything they believed about you. Retelling old stories in new tones. re-editing old memories to fit the narrative of someone who was never average, just dormant. Because denial is easier than admitting the truth. They were standing next to a storm and mistook it for a breeze. Let's dig deeper, the part that makes their breath catch. They don't fear your 300%. They fear that it might not be your limit. Humans don't panic when they reach the end of what you are. They panic when they realize they have no idea what you're capable of. Their silence wasn't the full reaction. It was the first. The real reaction comes in phases. Phase 1, silence, shock disguised as professionalism. Phase 2, whispers. Is this sustainable? Is he okay? How did he do it? Is he hiding something? Phase 3, separation. People stop treating you like a colleague and start treating you like a threat. Phase 4, projection. They assume you're ruthless, they assume you're heartless, they assume you're dangerous, because they can't comprehend doing what you did without losing something deep inside. But here's the twist that makes you different. You didn't lose anything. You reclaimed something. You took back the version of you that life tried to bury. The one forged in pressure, carved in conflict, sharpened by survival. You resurrected a self that sleeps in most people and wakes only in the rare, the broken, the chosen, the unkillable. And now the air around you behaves differently. People feel it. Even strangers can sense it. They don't know if you're the hero of this story or the villain they've been warned about. They don't know if they should shake your hand or avoid making eye contact. They don't know if you'll build or destroy or evolve into something language doesn't have a name for yet. Because hitting 300% wasn't your achievement. It was your arrival signal, your announcement to the universe that the old rules no longer apply. The ceilings are gone, the limits are fiction, and the next move you make will not be a step. It will be a shockwave, so let them fear, let them stare, let them choke in silence while their minds scramble to form explanations. Because the truth is simple. They thought they understood you, but 300% was just your hello. And here's the part they'll never recover from. The part you felt humming beneath your skin ever since that moment. When you hit 300%, you didn't just surpass a benchmark. You shattered a boundary you were never meant to see. And once a boundary breaks, it never grows back the same. You felt it, didn't you? That eerie calm, that chilling clarity, that terrifying sense of inevitability dripping down your spine. Because deep in your bones, you realized something they're still too scared to admit. You're not returning to who you were before. You couldn't, even if you tried. Something unlocked, something irreversible, something ancient, something powerful. The silence in that room wasn't confusion. It was the world pausing to recognize a new constant it will now have to orbit around. And while they sat there trembling behind their professional masks, you stood completely still, because you were listening to something they couldn't hear. Your next level calling you, not as a possibility, as a certainty. So let's end this without mercy, without softness, without pretending there's any going back. They aren't scared of your success. They're scared of your trajectory. They aren't scared of what you did. They're scared that you did it without hesitation. They aren't scared of your numbers. They're scared that your numbers feel like footsteps. Slow, precise, approaching. Because 300% is not a finish line. It's a starting weapon, a countdown, a red flag, A signal flare in the night sky announcing the arrival of something they don't have defenses for. And the most unsettling truth of all, you didn't break a ceiling, you broke character. The character they assigned to you. The character they depended on you staying inside. The character that made them feel safe. But now they're staring at someone who's no longer predictable, no longer containable, no longer willing to shrink for their comfort. You became the one thing humans instinctively fear. A person who has tasted their own potential and refuses to let go. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them choke on theories about how you did it. Because none of their explanations will save them from what comes next. You're not aiming higher, you're not climbing, you're not reaching, you're ascending. And ascension doesn't ask for witnesses, it just happens quietly, inevitably, catastrophically. So here's your final truth, spoken without illusion. 300% was never about proving something to them. It was about reminding something inside you, that the version they thought was your limit was only the tutorial. The world went silent because they finally understood. You're not a player in their game. You're the glitch that breaks it. You're the shift that rewrites it. You're the force that replaces it. And the moment you crossed 300%, the universe itself took a step back and made room. End it here. Not with a whisper, with a realization. They went silent because they sensed the truth before you said it. No one knows what comes next, not even you. And that mystery is your greatest weapon.